Hey y'all, it's your friend D, and welcome to part 3 of our Barbie village build. Now, last time we were working on the gazebo, and I had to stop because I realized I wanted to fill in my columns a little bit more and not leave any of the foam board showing. And I needed some more of these rods. So I went back to the Dollar Tree and bought a few more. And this is what I make my rods out of. You find these in the barbecue section of the Dollar Tree. At least my Dollar Tree has them in the barbecue section. And you get 12 pieces. Now, I cut my rods down to 14 inches. So for each pack that I bought, I can actually get 24 rods out of each pack. So now that I have my extra rods for the piece, I'm going to start gluing those in place and also getting the other walls up. So we have all the walls together. And really quick, guys, I forgot to turn my mic on at the beginning of the video. I got a new mic and I just keep forgetting to turn it on sometimes. So I'm sorry if the audio is a little different than it was at the beginning of the video. But moving on, I have the walls together and I think I did pretty good. There is a little warping, but it's not bad. And I did run into an issue here on this side. So if you look at the top here, this wall is slightly higher than this one. And that's because when I was putting this wall in place, I was I just wasn't paying attention and I didn't line it up um, in this corner, this bottom corner here. And by the time I realized it and I saw this gap up here, it was dried in place. And when I tried to remove it, it was tearing this piece of foam board. So I just left it in place and covered the gap with the rods here. But now I have to make an adjustment up here. So here's a closer look at that gap that I have. And also you can see this side is up higher. And I've drawn a line here. And that's where I need to kind of cut. And it's not a lot, but it is enough to make a difference when I go to make the top piece for the gazebo. So I'm going to have to trim that down and try to get all of this lined up as good as possible. So I fixed that and it wasn't a huge difference, but this side was definitely higher. So when I cut it, I had to almost cut it at an angle. And I just used my X-Acto knife to take a little off at a time until I got it lined up pretty good. All right, so now I think we're going to start making the top of the gazebo. So I have another piece of foam board that I'm going to trace an octagon on, and it would have been really easy to just trace the bottom, but since I had that little hiccup with one of the walls, that's not going to be possible. It's going to throw it off just a little bit for what I want to do. So instead, I'm going to have to trace it around the top part to make sure that the roof fits perfectly. And here's a look on the inside, guys. Yeah, so it looks pretty good. So I'm going to have to just turn it over. And I'm going to trace the inside and the outside to make sure that, and I have to come up with a way to mark it so I know what corner is what. So yeah, I'll come up with something so I'll remember to, I'll probably put some little marks on the walls here and to match. So I'll know which side is what. But I'm going to get this traced and then I'll come back when I cut it out. Okay, guys, so I have the top portion of the gazebo traced, and I'm glad I traced the top instead of just doing the base because um, that one wall that I put in incorrectly, I believe it was this one. We had to shave a little bit off the top. I should have really just taken that wall out. I think I just panicked when I tried to pull it out while the glue was still a little warm, and it started to damage this wall. And so I decided to stop. And what I should have done was just let the glue dry and then took my X-Acto knife and cut this wall back out and then reset it. And, hindsight, of course. But if this happens to you, just take the wall out because it has kind of forced this to a point here a little more than what we wanted. But we're going to work with it because looking at the octagon, looking at the gazebo from the top portion and from all sides, you really can't tell. It's just when I traced it out, it was very noticeable. So for the top portion, we're going to just use this to make sure that it's going to fit properly. So from our inside wall of our gazebo, I want to go out on the top portion. I want it to be an extra 3/4 an inch out. So we'll have this ledge on the inside, and on the outside, I want 3/4 an inch. So we'll have a ledge going around. And so I'm going to trace this around the entire octagon and on the inside, cut it out, and we'll fit it on top of the gazebo. So guys, I have my piece cut out, and I forgot to mention that I did label my sides. So this is 1 and 2, and on the inside we have 1 and 2. That way when I go to lay this top piece on, I know exactly how it fits on there. Because we had that one side that kind of sticked out a little bit more. So now that I have that cut out, I can glue it in place, and then I can start putting my trim in here. I didn't want to put the trim on first and then this because I wanted to make sure that my trim was going to be flush up against the the top piece, since again, that one wall right here is a little messed up. I think we fixed it, but I just wanted to make sure that this piece was laying flat on it before I tried to add any kind of trim above these columns here. So guys, we glued on this top piece, and I've been working on the other pieces that'll go with this. And I almost forgot that I needed to have 2 of these. So I traced this piece out and cut another one, and I did mark my 1 and 2 so I'll know which sides to match up when I put this on the top. But we'll get to this piece in a minute. So I've also been cutting out a bunch of these little triangles. This is the triangle that none of the sides are equal. I think it's called a scalene triangle. So yeah, I've been cutting these out, and what I'm doing with them is I'm taking the little notch out of this corner, just cutting that, and once I put these in place, so guys, these little pieces are going to be like kind of like braces for the roof, but I mean, they're not really holding anything up, but it's more just for decorations. But I did want that little hole right here, and that is going to come in handy later on. But I'm going to get to cutting more of these. And I've also been cutting the pieces for the dome. So let me show you guys really quick how these are going to work. So guys, I've been cutting these pieces out, and they're going to act as the pieces to make the dome of the gazebo top. And to get my length on these, I just measured across to where I wanted them to stop. So I wanted the end of my, I guess, beam to stop about a inch in from the edge here on each side. So I just measured across, and this one came out to 13 and a half. And then the other ones, some came out to, let me see, upside down, 12 and 7/8 of an inch. So these are going to sit across like this. So to make these pieces, I just took some paperboard that I had left over. And this is actually, I think, a gift box. And I folded it in half after I cut it to the length that I needed. And I made a couple of measurements. Now, I don't know if I did this the correct way. If you are a carpenter or um, architect, maybe you know a better way to do this. But I folded my paper in half. I know I want the ends of my beams to be 1 inch wide. So I measured from the edge in 1 inch. And then I measured my highest point, which I wanted to be 3 inches from the base. So then from there, I was able to measure how wide I wanted my beams to be, and I wanted them a 1/2 inch. So this point here is 2.5 inches from the bottom. So after I got those measurements, I just traced down to these points, and that's how I got my arch. So when I cut them out, so this is the longer one. So I was able to cut them out, and then I got my shape. Laid it on some foam board and was able to cut it out. So let's start piecing all of these together and my little triangles. So guys, I have my supports in place, and I also put them on the inside. And I'm about to start working on the dome for the very top, but I'll also have some 1 inch pieces, 1 inch thick pieces that will go across the top up here, and the dome will sit on top of these. So for the first piece that I'm going to lay down, it's going to be one of the longer pieces. So we have these that are 13.5 inches. So I'm going to fix this into place. And I know all of the other ones, I will have to cut them in half. So I want to get this one in place first, and then I can figure out how much I need to cut, um, because I'm pretty sure the first one will be the width of this piece I'll have to cut out, but the other ones may be a little bit different. So I'm going to glue this piece in place, and then we'll go from there. Here's the top of our gazebo, and I think it came out pretty good. Here's how they're all connecting together, and they'll fit. Let me make sure I'm matching up my numbers here. There's So it'll fit like that once I get the other pieces sandwiched in between. But I also want something on top. I think it's called a cap, but I don't have anything that looks like I kind of wanted a spindle, but then I started thinking this is already going to be taller than I intended once I put that 1 inch piece in between here. So I think I'm going to try to do something with this leftover floral foam that I have. I'm not sure if how well this takes paint, but there's a couple of different sizes in here, and I'm not going to leave it a ball. I think I'm going to cut it in half, or let me see. So yeah, I might like that. I might. I think I'm going to cut that big one in half. Okay, so I have my border around the top, and I went ahead and put the dome on to make sure it fit within this gap here that I created. And it is a very snug fit. So I'm hoping once I paint everything, it doesn't make it not fit in there. So inside, I put some extra pieces behind it just to support this. And the reason why I left this little ledge here is because this is where my lights are going to go. Now, Irene asked me in the comments, she asked if I was going to add lights, and I told her yes. And she was wondering if I was going to do a bench down on the base part and just hide the power or the battery pack there. And I had thought about that, but it was going to take away space from the floor. And I wanted to leave as much space down on the floor as I could. So what I'm going to do is my batteries are going to sit up here. And I'm going to poke holes somewhere and decide and run these through. And to hold the lights up so I don't have to like put any kind of pins or hooks in, that's what my little supports are for. So the lights will come out of one of the holes that I poked from the top here, and I'll just run them through the holes that I left in my supports here. So I have all of my holes in. I made 2 holes in each corner. So one is for the outside, and the other one will be the lights that go around the inside. So guys, I have my base coat of the black paint and Mod Podge on, but right now I'm going back and touching up spots because with this black paint on, any places that you miss, they're gonna stick out like a sore thumb. So I've been going back with this smaller brush. This is the smallest brush I have, and let me see if I can turn it around. So there's some spots right above this arch. I don't know if the camera's picking it up as well, but for me, it's just sticking out and showing that white underneath. So I'm going back in with this smaller brush and just getting into those little areas because when I put my top coat on, or whatever color I choose, I don't want that white showing. I would rather have black showing. And thought I was ready to start painting this, but after I fit in my dome, just to double check, I decided that I wanted to add these pieces here. And yeah, I almost painted over my marking so I'll know how the dome fits on. But yeah, I just thought this would help. And as you can see, my battery packs for my lights fit right into this groove. This way I don't have to worry about these going anywhere. I don't have to use any kind of putty to keep them in place. So guys, I started painting with my paint choice, and I'm going for a faux stone again. You know, I tried it with the storefronts, and I just want to try to perfect this as much as I can. So I went back and watched some more videos. This time, instead of watching more miniaturist paint, I went and watched a lot of actual, guess, builders, contractors that do, you know, people size houses. And the majority of them always put their lighter paint down first and then layered on top of that. Where the miniaturists, the majority of the ones that I watched always put a darker coat down first. So I'm going to go in with a lighter coat with my brush, and then the other coats I will be using a sponge. And hopefully that gives us a better result. So this is what it's looking like with the light gray on first over the black coat. And I really didn't even put the gray on heavy and cover up all of the black. And I'm really liking this. It's giving me that light stone color that I want. I still have to go over it with the dark gray. And I'm going to go really light and brush it on and then blot it with the sponge. So I'm going to try to show you guys what I'm doing on this top portion here. Um, and one of the videos said to go a little bit heavy in the corners, and then as your brush gets less paint on it, work your way out. So let's see here, and then go in and blot it with your sponge. That might have been a little bit too heavy in that corner, but we can always go back and try to fix it later. So I have to do a voiceover here, guys. My audio was just too funny. But Robin, thanks again for suggesting that I use a sponge. Now that I figured it out, it came out so much better. And this ended up being 25 inches tall. So I did not have a backdrop for this. I had to piece together something really quick to take some pictures. But so the backdrops are to come in the future. But now let's take a closer look at this, guys. I really love the way it came out. So for the dome, I'm so happy that I left it open. It's going to make it so much easier to take my pictures without having to constantly remove the top of it. And it lets a lot more light in. So I'm excited about that part of it. And for the cap or the spindle, I guess I would call it, I used the medium-sized floral foam ball, painted it black, and then went over that with my gold paint. And I added the end piece of one of those bamboo skewers that I use for the columns. I just stuck that on top. I did file the top of it down so it wasn't so sharp, but I still put a small bead on top just to make that less pointy. So here, I think I'm talking about the vines. Yeah. So these are just Dollar Tree florals that I found in their new spring shipments. And this one has the lighter tips, and I thought it was really nice for spring. And here's a darker green one that I plan on using for summer when I take pictures with this. And then I think I show another one. Yeah, this is the one I'm going to use for fall. I also want to take this gazebo outside and take pictures, maybe at the park. Here's a close-up of the supports that I made and the lights that are going through them. So one strand of fairy lights, and these are Dollar Tree lights, wrapped around the entire gazebo. So I used one for the outside and one for the inside. I may go back and add some more later, but for now, I think this looks nice. Here's a look at the inside lights, and so you can see these are ran through the supports also, and that's just going to make it so much easier to add and remove the lights. And I'm just happy I didn't have to permanently put them in there or, put holes in the walls of the gazebo in order to hold them up. So that's going to come in very handy in the future when I decorate for the different holidays. Here's a look at the floor, and I love the paint job on it. And I think I'm pointing out that I made a little mess. At one point, I put too much paint in and I lost some of the design. And instead of fixing it, I left it because it kind of reminded me of when stone gets kind of worn down from people either walking on it or just from the weather. So I guess it was a good mistake and it ended up looking really nice. Here's a look at the outside of the gazebo, and I'm glad I decided to add those extra dowel rods to the outside to make the columns bigger. It just really made it look a lot cleaner, I think. If I would have left more of that foam board showing, it probably wouldn't have looked as neat to me. And adding the little design on the panels and the extra trimming really helped to add to the overall look of this. So my friends, let me know what you think about this project. And if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments below. I'll try to the best of my ability to answer. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.